Welcome to the show. And our today's guest is an entrepreneur, author, and speaker, and who has experience of decades with running micro and small businesses. And she's very familiar with all the challenges that go with it. As she started one from her kitchen table as a single mother and then went on to build it into a multi-million turnover business. So I feel amazing to have you here. So she's none other than Jan Cavelle. So how are you feeling today?
Thank you very much for a lovely introduction.
Yeah, amazing. So, how do you feel coming on the show?
It's great to be here. I'm very grateful for the invitation.
Uh, Thanks for coming here from the first
Whole
place.
new audience for me.
Sorry?
A whole new audience for me.
Yeah, sorry. So, tell us about a bit more about yourself. I mean, like, what obstacle did you face in your journey, and like, what were the biggest challenges?
Wow, my journey is quite a long one in that I've been in businesses for a long time now. And I started off just having a lot of fun working for myself, really. So there weren't too many obstacles in that, apart from running short of money sometimes. But the biggest obstacle came along when as you mentioned, I started a business when I had two small children. And I was a single mum, and I was on social security support and in generally a not very good place. And I started a business to try and build a new life for them and for me, for that matter, but most of all for them. And that was really tough working. Firstly, I'd never tried to do a business seriously before. And secondly, juggling work and a single mom is not an easy thing to do. And, they're just simply logistical challenges. I mean, I couldn't afford childminders or anything like that, so you had to juggle talking to clients and, the small child screaming in the background and all those things that parents do when they're working. More common, of course, now with all the COVID lockdowns. But in those days, it was just unheard of. You didn't work from home. You were totally amateur if you dared to have a child ever make a noise in the background. And so that was tough. And I had no cash flow to speak of, really, because obviously not having had a proper business before, I couldn't get finance, couldn't try. And I mean, I had no money of my own, really. And so yeah, it was tough going as an obstacle to overcome in those early days. But I think being a parent is a really good incentive. I mean, for other ones, but it's always easier, I think, to do things for other people, and particularly for your kids. What a motivation. And so, it got me going and kept me going.
Yeah, I love that. So, when was it? So, like, the first business.
When was that? We're going back. Oh, goodness, you're making me use my brain this afternoon. We're going back then to about 25 years ago, I guess I started. Yeah, all of that. But it was sort of late between 25 and 30 years ago, that business started. And it literally was a kitchen table job, which gradually expanded as demand got more and I knew a little bit more. And it ended up with 2 factories and 40 plus people. So it was a big leap from knowing nothing to that, and a lot of challenges along the way. I could keep you going on challenges from here to the end of the year, I think.
Okay. So you actually like the best thing I loved about what you said was that you said your children as a motivation for doing what you want to do. So many people don't do that, like do the quite opposite thing.
Yeah, I think if you haven't got children, which is fine, I'm nothing wrong with that. But you still need to find something that is going to keep you getting out of bed in the morning when the going gets tough. Because it will get tough, and you need and just thinking this is a good idea is or even actually getting rich. Which of course lots of people start businesses because they think it's going to make them lots of money. And in truth, that isn't enough to keep people going. I know a lot of far more successful entrepreneurs than me who will say, when they're looking to invest or something like that, if somebody says, I want to get rich, they will almost always think you're not going to make it if that's all you want. You need something else. You need something deeper, a passion to do what you're doing, a passion to do it because it's going to benefit other people, like your kids, or a passion to get out there and help the world. Whatever it is, it's, it's fine if it's just your family, but, it's got to be a little bit more than just for money. It won't see you through.
Okay, interesting. So it's about the background purpose of why you are doing this, why we want to be in business.
Yes, it is. It's sort of a little bit of Simon Sinek's why, but I really agree with it. I think you just have to have a bigger reason for it. Otherwise, things will change. I mean, what ended up happening with me is that, of course, kids get older, as they do, astoundingly, and they got to be, to the stage where they left home, and I was quite lost because my wire had gone. And it seemed very sensible to keep cracking on with the business, but sensible doesn't do it, and that was part of the reason, and plus a few other things that I ended up getting very lost and burning out. But without the why, you don't last.
Okay, so what was like from burning out? Like, how did you came out of it?
From burning out, that was a tough one. I mean, it was happening over a long period of time. I mean, maybe 4 or 5 years. And partly, as I say, it was to do with the children, leaving home, and indeed my son, who I'm really close to, and I still am, but he went to live in Australia, which really absolutely slaughtered me and got me in all sorts of states and depression and whatnot. So that didn't help. But, it got tougher. The markets changed. We had the 2007, 2008 recession. And while we survived it, we had to adapt and change as a company to find a new market. And it wasn't the sort of market. It's an interesting one, this, because when you pivot, that's sometimes what you do is move markets. And that's fine if the next market still has values that fit your company. But in fact, for us, for new market, I really couldn't sort of get my head around, and I couldn't see their values. Interestingly enough, we moved very up market and to the sort of super rich, I guess. And I don't know whether, I just found it a bit too obscene money-wise. It just didn't, whereas before we were doing show homes and what was required of us was to do as damn good job as well as we possibly could, get furniture there as looking smart, on time, a professional job, if you like. And I got that, and I really wanted to do a good job for my clients. Somebody who was just ordering a dinner table to throw out the next day, I just increasingly over time, I just find it nauseous with the amount of poverty in the world. Yeah, I'm getting on my high horse here. It's just a bit of a soapbox for me. But I did find it affected my desire to actually do a good job for clients. So that was another thing. Again, you have to be passionate about what you do. And increasingly, I was thinking, do I care if you've got X number of pounds to throw away? It just doesn't do it for me. So there was that, and a lack of kids, and lots of things. And so what did I do? I decided I would wind the company up, really, and did it in various complicated ways. The brand is still trading. But I thought I'd be, everybody said, oh my God, what are you going to do? This is going to be the end of the earth. You've been in this company for 20 odd years. You're going to be lost without it. And this is going to be a terrible crisis for you. And they were rather used to me having a terrible crisis, as it's taken a long time for me to get over my son going to Australia. But actually, I sort of woke up the next day and I thought, I should just draw the curtains and stay under the duvet and hide away. This is, I'm having a crisis. I thought, no, I'm not. Actually, if this has gone on so long, this is just wonderful. I should have made this decision a few years ago. Then it would have probably been tough. But I've beaten my head against a brick wall for so long. It's been so hard. It's, I'm exhausted most of all, but it was actually just a release. So what I had to do was turn it very positively, and I used affirmations and vision boards very heavily, and gratitude too, and just created a whole new life for myself, one that I wanted rather than one that was dictated by, within reason, by being a single mom and by a business that had taken hold of me, actually, that I was no longer in control of my life. So it was really a treat to be able to draw up a vision board and think, what would I like my life to be like? How exciting is that when you get that chance again? So I thought I was very lucky. I've thought I was very lucky ever since.
Okay, so I have two questions from there, like from the things you said. So first is, so what, like let's say, so what was the first thing what that you did during the 2007 or 8 recession? And the second is like, how did your vision board or positive psychology that you say affected you positively in your journey?
The 2007, 2008 recession, the first thing we did, I was very lucky. I went to, by chance, I just happened to go to a very good conference in London, a seriously good one, invited through my writing, oddly enough, not through business. And I ended up sitting on a panel. I think somebody else didn't turn up, and it was an emergency job. So I was a bit sort of, what's going on? But it was absolutely fascinating, and there were really good speakers there. And for the first time, this must have been sort of 2006, I guess, there was a speaker who was in retail who was saying, you've no idea, some of you, what's coming. And there's this massive recession, and retail is going to be hit badly, which of course it was. It was the start of problems with retail, and everything was going to change. And, you should see this as an opportunity, but you're going to have to actually reinvent. And I counted myself incredibly lucky to happen to be there as by chance and listen to this guy whose name escapes me. But I went back to business and I said, to all my guys there, I said, look, things are going to change, and what we need to do is, firstly, we need to completely overhaul every single one of our outgoings and overheads and cut everything to the bone. Because at the time we'd been growing ferociously and hadn't been too careful about spending, to be honest. It was all about growth. But I said, now is the time. We nail that supply chain and we get all the prices renegotiated. We get rid of any spending that isn't essential. And we see if we, I think we knocked, if I remember, memory serves me correctly, I think we knocked about our spending by about 25% in a matter of a couple of months. It was stunning what you get used to spending, and because it's easy, because it's convenient, it's a bit like what you do at home, really. And what actually, if you focus on it, you can get rid of. So that was the first step. And I know you asked me another question, and I'm so sorry I've forgotten it. What's the next question?
Okay, so the next question was basically, how much did your vision board or like your positive psychology basically affected you in your journey?
Affected my what?
Your journey.
My journey? Oh, hugely. I still have the first one I did on my computer, and it's because I sort of updated them about every 6 months to think, does this still feel a good fit? And it's amazing how much, this is going back now about 6 years, I guess, maybe give or take. And it's amazing. I look at it now and I think, yeah, done that. That's where I am. That's where I'm living. That's what I've done. There was write a book on there, move house, it's all tick, 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 find a house near water, it's extraordinary. I really followed that path. And just by, saying that and believing that and looking at it every day and thinking about the steps you need to do to achieve it, and you can do this with your business too, just break it down into mini goals. This is where I want to get. And, therefore, if that's a 5-year goal, this is what I need to achieve this year. And that means that I've got to get to this in 3 months. You can move the world like that. I really believe that.
Interesting, really interesting. So I have to learn how to create a vision board. I still don't know how to create one.
Oh gosh, I mean, it's literally a question. Break up your life. I'm trying to remember if I always use 6 headings, and I had obviously, it's to do. It's not so much what should I do with my business. It's where would I like to be in my business, in my career. And, what would I like my home life to look like? What would I like my relationships to look like? What would I like to be financially? Which is a different thing sometimes to your career, quite often sometimes. And, what do I want to, how does my downtime look? It's building yourself an ideal life. And then getting, just sorting through endless pictures on the net or wherever till you find one that really resonates and matches where you want to go financially or live, the sort of house you want to have or whatever. And then sticking those pictures that represent those areas onto a piece of cardboard or whatever, having them in front of you somewhere you can see every day, saying, I want a house like this, or, whatever. It is as simple as that. And it's got to resonate from heart.
Interesting. So I have to make this like that would be a goal for me, or like, let's say a to do task for me. Okay. So what do you say is your biggest failure in life or business?
Biggest failure in life. It's difficult. I think you change as you get older. Business mistakes that, for example, that seemed catastrophic at the time, they're not really important later on. I think my biggest mistake in life, which could be viewed, I guess, as a failure, I think, is to prioritize business too much. I don't think it does the business any good. And it certainly doesn't do you any good as a person. You have to prioritize you as well. This is failing. I'm bad at looking after myself, and I'm better than I was, but I was terrible. So we're coming from -10 to maybe +1, and so that was my constant. Oh, I can wait. And that's a mistake when it's a mistake for you personally. And it's actually a mistake for your business as well. You need to be on top form to run a business. And if you don't look after yourself, you won't be. So it's self-defeating.
Okay, interesting. So how can a person actually be on the top form in his business?
Good question. I think, they need all the obvious things, lots of water, plenty of sleep, taking time for themselves, a little bit of meditation, if that's your bag. I think it's personal, but, getting some downtime, whatever that means to you, every single day without fail. Building in self-development of some sort, at least every week. If not more, and it's so easy now with the net, you've got wonderful masterclasses or podcasts or whatever to listen to, or working with a mentor or whatever that might be, or a mix of those two, say 2 hours a week. If your schedule can't allow you 2 hours a week to develop your skills, your business won't develop. Otherwise, your business will only develop as much as you do.
Okay, so like is personal development important or the team development important? Like which is more important than among these two?
Health, because I mean, if you haven't got your health, you're absolutely not, just not going to be able to go on. Found that one out. I mean, it is as simple as that. You can't operate if your health's shot.
Okay, so I think I mistake like said the question wrong. So what I meant is like among your personal development, like which is more important, your personal development or your team development of like of your business? So which one is important?
Right. To be honest, I think yourself is, because like I say, you will be your business's worst enemy and hold it back if you don't develop. You can, and if you look after yourself and you develop, then you're in a position to look after you and help your team develop. If you don't do you can't do the others.
Okay, good. Amazing answer actually. So now the next thing is, so how much, like let's say, how can a person actually scale his business from by developing himself?
Scaling a business takes strategy and it takes time. You need to, it's going back to your vision board, if you like. If you've got scale my business up there, you need probably 18 months to 2 years to prepare for it. It's not something you can wake up and say, I'm going to scale my business now. Particularly, when you get to a certain size, you can grow it, maybe up to 5 people, you can grow it, just by keeping going, selling as much as you can and having a load of fun and working hard. After that sort of size, you've got to do a really professional plan and strategy and make sure what you're doing is right for the market. You're in marketing, you'll know how important that is to get your marketing differential spot on and to get the right people. All those things take time. And money, of course. You may be raising money. That takes time. People think they can just raise money when they want it. It doesn't. It's a long old process if you're raising serious amounts of money for a business. So all those things, allow yourself 18 months minimum to make a plan, break it down into those goals, and then grow according to that plan, nicely and controlled.
Yeah, you actually said a very interesting point, which was actually raising money. Like a few days ago, I was talking to someone who actually mentioned, we were discussing about raising money on our, and he said that one of his friends, or like very close friends, like is quite experienced in his like raise a lot of capital in her lifetime, but like during her first 100,000, like when she was raising for her first $100,000, she had to like request to or like talk to around 450 VCs for like the first 100,000, and on her lifetime period she actually raised around $100 million. Like that's what the difference is.
Yeah, I mean, things have changed a lot since I started in business. When I started out, you went to the bank for business money, and that was your choice. People, venture capitalists were interested in very large businesses, and that was it. Over time, there became, with the sort of introduction of tech businesses, really, things shifted, and you started with the VCs getting involved with larger businesses to help them grow, and in the hopeful way of finding a unicorn for themselves. And so at a certain stage, VC and capital of large sums got involved, and then all of a sudden that market became a bit dry or a bit used up, if you like. Most of the good ones had gone, and there weren't enough coming through to satisfy this new demand from the investors. So you got a new breed of investor who was more interested in startups. And of course, sort of start with high growth potential. Startups couldn't possibly have looked at angel investing, 10 years ago. I mean, they would have been lucky to find it. And it's also, we've got crowdfunding, which is a great way to consider raising money for a fast growth business now. If you can't get it anywhere else, it's an expansion on friends and family first round. It still takes time to do successfully. I've been told, I haven't done it, but I've been told it takes, again, at least 18 months to raise properly on crowdfunding. But, great opportunities for people in all those different avenues of raising finance now, if that's what they need to do. But, the downside of all that is that everybody thinks that now that they must raise huge sums to start a business. And it's perfectly feasible not to. It depends if you've got a business idea that you're so knowledgeable and so passionate about that simply won't work without it, then possibly that's the way to go. But don't assume for every business that, a large investment is definitely the way to go, because it isn't. And it comes with a downside, and I mean, you don't get to keep all the money in the end for a start. So those bootstrap businesses like, am I going to be able to think of anything? Sarah Blakeney and Spanx, who's managed to grow an international business and hang on to every single bit herself. It can be done.
Interesting. So I'm also more into keeping business to myself, but though not myself, but having less amount of partners, basically, not like a lot, or I don't think, I don't aim to have a public company yet. So my shift, let the mindset might shift. I don't know. I don't know yet.
Well, like I say, I mean, for a lot of us older generation entrepreneurs are very pro. I mean, when I speak to people and I interview them for my writing, I don't do a podcast, as you know, but I speak to the older generation, and most of them are not frightfully keen on the startup, get loads of money because that's what you do type of business. Actually, they do, because they argue that, really, would you give huge sums of money to somebody with no business experience, which is what it actually is. And so it's a bit, the risk is just so great. It's a little bit crazy unless it's so essential. So good on you. I think you're probably going the right route. Keep it all for you.
Yeah, not all for me, because everything can't be done by a single person, but less amount of partners. That's it.
Yeah.
Less amount of partners. Yeah. So I want to discuss more about scaling a business. So at what are the different stages of scaling a business? So as the first thing that I mentioned was, you can reach till 5 teammates easily, and after that you have to take a big leap. And then after that, what are the different stages for it?
Well, I think, as I say, you've got your first group of you up to a certain stage, and it depends very much on the sector you're in, as to how many people that involves and how much investment, and therefore what turnover you need to support it. So it's difficult to have hard and fast rules, but there comes a stage when you can see that company needs more to allow it to grow. And that's, that it needs more cash, it needs more people, it needs more time, it's running clunkily. That's a bad word to use. It's sort of, it's crazy to run all the time. You're always firefighting. And, while that can be fun for a short while, after a while, enough. And it clearly won't grow any further without making changes, because that business has to become not something that you and your co-founders are in the middle of, but something that you are outside of and that starts to run on its own. And that's what you need to think about creating. And to do that means planning it out. You need to be, like I say, be sure of your market, do the research. When we start, we'll sell anything to anybody, because it's great. We're making money if we make sales, fantastic. But that won't allow you sustainable growth. To grow sustainably, you have to have something that people are going to bite your hand off for continually, that market is big enough to allow for that growth. So marketing has to come first, because you're just not going to do it if there's not the market demand. Then, assuming you've got that, you can start planning. And when you start planning, like I say, that means planning out who's that management team who's going to run it on a day-to-day basis. If you step back and start running the business, planning and growing the business, not actually working out what that particular client wants in the next hour. So that means planning for what people you'll need, what management team you'll need. Always slightly different with co-founders. It's not such a crisis because you can step in and take it in turns a bit, but still there will come a time when you have to do it. And there, of course, you need to be good, because there's replacements for you, which means on the whole, they'll be expensive. So, it's a big outlay. So you've got to plan that. You've got to plan how much that's going to cost. It means good systems. It means, everything written up, everything with a way it should be done. Without killing creativity, obviously, because people work much better if they're allowed to be creative and if they're allowed to input things. But anything that can run as a set system for you, automation, great, fantastic, or just a quick write-up of how to do this, how to do that. All those things need to be in place. And you literally plan it out like a chessboard. And then it's easy. You work out your strategy, where you're going. You've got to have a clear vision. How much, or, how big is this company going to go?
Interesting. So what are the obstacles, or let's say, what are the roadblocks during the scaling process usually?
It's terribly hard. That jump between a nice little business to a substantial size is, on the whole, from other entrepreneurs I speak to and my own experience as well, the hardest time in any business. If you do it successfully up to a certain size of, maybe 100 people or whatever, then it's not that hard to take it further. You've earned your stripes. You can go on and use the same principles to build more, because it becomes the same jigsaw puzzle, but bigger. But that transformation between a small company into a separate sort of, what words am I looking for? A separate entity that survives on its own 2 feet, if you like. That's the hardest possible challenge you will have to make. And the better the strategy, the better your foundations, the more there is in place before you start, the far greater chances you have of succeeding.
Okay, interesting. Okay, so I'm actually processing these things, everything.
Yeah, no, sure.
So these are actually very complicated things. So if how are you saying it seems very easy, but it is actually hard, and quite complicated actually.
Hard.
Yeah, it's very hard, as you said. It's very hard.
It's very hard, but there are various reasons for it being very hard. Firstly, people often drift into it. I was saying the sort of 18 months to 2 years to prepare. People think that's not, or they don't realize they have to do that. And so they just drift in, getting bigger and bigger. and then they haven't got foundations in place and it doesn't go well, and they can't step back because they haven't got right people or whatever. So they're firefighting all the time and life's a misery, and they can't grow it because they can't do the work they need to do to grow. And so, and they run out of money because they haven't planned it properly. All those things, that's the first and biggest reason. I know so many companies, including me, who didn't understand, maybe, that you need to start thinking about this before you go anywhere near doing it. So that's one of the reasons it's hard. And I think after that, you've got to get it right. And that always means a little bit of luck on your side, good timing. There's some things we can't control in business, like COVID or whatever, and trying to de-risk it is very important to survive the unexpected. But planned out, you've got a much better chance.
Okay, planning is very important then, like after marketing, planning. Okay, so let's say now, so let's say a company, like they have like 25 people right now. So now they want to scale to 100 people. Okay, so what step would you suggest them? So like how do they organize their leadership team, and what should be their next step?
The next step ought to be to plan out how long that's going to take them and how much it's going to cost them at each stage, whether they can do it by drip feeding and self-funding, earning enough in to in 6 months to grow by 10 and not have to get financing, and then another 6 months by 20. Work out the figures firstly. If you can fund it yourself, or if you're going, and at what pace, you might be able to afford it to do it over 2 years, but you couldn't afford to do it over one. So a lot of it comes down to the financing of it. Market check. You're going to get enough sales, because if you're not going to get enough sales, you're going to be in serious trouble if you've taken on 75 of them. And so you've got money, you've got sales, you're getting there if that's the case, but if you've got that plan that's driven by how much sales can I get, how much money can I get, and then you've got your recruiting plan to go along with that, allowing yourself plenty of time to get those people, because you do not want to get poor quality people in. You want top quality people in, and that might take you a little bit longer to find. So it's just bite-sized planning. But again, without the planning, you're just setting yourself up to fail.
Okay, so the 3 steps that I got from you were, firstly, not first 3 steps, but like 3 major points. They were finances, or the money, and the second is planning, and like not planning, I think it was sales, I guess, sales or marketing, and the third was to proper recruitment plan, because they're scaling 4 times.
Yeah, I mean, I think but planning and market, you just start with, you probably start with the market, because even if the market's not there, you're wasting your time to plan. Market, plan, people, systems, and your own development, because you're going to change from the type of person with the type of, well, not so much type of person, but the person with the skills needed to run a company of 25 into a person who's going to be running a company of 100, and that's different skills. So you've got to have that personal development.
Interesting. Yeah, this is also a very important thing that most people like don't think about. They may think about the other point, that we need market, we need to see, let's say, the sales, or is we're recruiting enough people, but they don't see that they also have to develop from being an organizer or the manager of 125 people to 100 people. Like that
I
is
know.
also, yeah.
I didn't either, but, or not till way too late. And I, in done it, I was too near burning out by that stage, so I did learn a lot, but it was too late to apply for business. But yeah, you don't. You assume that you're running this business, so you'll take this business where you want to grow, and you cannot do it without developing yourself. I feel that so strongly, but I think it's also important to develop yourself in a good way. I think you need a really good support team around you. Again, you're lucky you've got co-founders. That helps enormously. But people who are going through the same journey as you in other companies, are really going to be the people you can just sort of 4 or 5 of them who will support you and brainstorm with you and pick you up and sympathize with you and make an awful difference. It's tough out there. And you need a good support system. However much your family might go, yeah, that's fine, poor you, or well done, they won't totally understand, whereas people who are on the same journey will.
Okay, interesting. So there is one question that I always ask. So with that is, so what is learning and education to you?
What is learning and education to me? My education was really mostly a waste of time, unfortunately. But it was a different era. Girls were brought up to get married and not to need anything intelligent. But having said that, the schools do not, in my opinion, still teach enough of anything that's useful in life. They don't teach resilience. They don't teach bookkeeping. They don't teach, even problem solving. It's force fed and it doesn't equip you for life, I don't think, education. So I'm not a huge fan of education, and I don't think a lot of education is relevant to business. I think probably things that taught me more about business were, what taught me most about business? I was going to say getting out there, and after my education, I did quite a lot of traveling, and that, working my way in sort of strange countries and things. I mean, I'm sure they were strange countries. They were strange to me, is all I mean. But that was getting out of my comfort zone. That was a real experience, and learning to survive and indeed problem solve. That something like that is a lot more useful to teach you how to negotiate business than straight education, I think.
Interesting. So we are almost at the end. So tell us about your book, so Scale to Success. So why did you
My
write
book.
it? Yeah.
Why did I write it? Well, after I had the business, I'd been writing for a digital publication called Real Business back then for a few years. And I discovered I'd always wanted to write as a child, but it just never come to anything. And after I had more time and I was doing my vision board, I thought, childhood ambition, do I want to write a book? Yeah, do. And, so I mulled that for a little while. And then I thought, what do I know about most? Business. Okay. I will have to do business and write about that. And I will talk about scaling a business and growing it successfully, because I know a lot about the problems of doing so from personal experience. So I decided to write this book to help people grow their businesses from that tiny size to much bigger.
So like, where can our listeners find you online?
Very good. They can find me. I'm sure you'll have it in the show notes below, but they can also find me at, they can find the book at Amazon or any other books shop, but Amazon tends to be the easiest. And it's called Scale for Success, and it's Jan Cavelle. Equally, they can go to my website, which is jancavelle.co.uk. do go to the .co.uk one, because the other one's my old company, which doesn't belong to me anymore. But yes, jancavelle.co.uk, and Amazon is your other alternative.
Okay, amazing. So thanks for coming on the show. And
My pleasure.
yeah, thanks a lot. And thanks for the listener who actually listened to this episode. So that's how, like, again, I'm really sure like people learned a lot from.
Excellent. Good. I'm glad to be able to help.